Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the REDX podcast. I'm your host, Haley Johnson, and today we have a very exciting guest. We have Bryan Casella with us, who we've had on the show with us before. But for those who don't know you, Bryan, could you give us just a brief introduction, who you are, what you do?
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Always good to come back. So Bryan Casella is my name. BC is the moniker that I have now in my brand. I run a team here in Southern California. I've been in the business for about 7 years now. I really built my business with the traditional methods of prospecting, which included cold calling, door knocking, going after the expired, so for sale by owners. I used REDX heavily in the beginning of my career and even through now. I recently have expanded my team nationwide. I have teams in Florida now and also in the East Coast. I have team members in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and actually Delaware now. So really expanded. And my journey really was just documented a lot, really documented on YouTube and social media. And that's kind of where I've gotten a lot of this attention from. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you, Bryan, and we'll get into a lot of what you just talked about. And because a lot of our audience and a lot of our customers are solo agents, new agents into the business, and trying to find things that will help them be successful. So we'll get into what you kind of did in the beginning and what makes you successful now. But first, I just want to welcome everybody in the chat. I see Pat, Amanda, Myrtle Hall, Bismarck Homes, a few other people chatting in here. Welcome back, everyone. These are some of our regulars that come back to every single show, which is awesome. So make sure if you have questions for Bryan to put them in the chats. We want this to be a participatory event so that he can answer all of your questions that you have. So why don't we just get started? We sent out a survey to our customers to ask what they wanted out of the podcast and what questions they want to ask some of the best people in the business. And so let's just start. Our first question today is from Dondre. And they asked, how do you keep your mindset to prospect consistently without fail? So prospecting obviously can be a little bit monotonous and hard to do. How do you keep your mindset positive?
Right. Great question. There's a lot that comes with that. The first kind of little piece that I can give people is the prospecting aspect of this business. Yes, it's monotonous. Yes, it can get boring. But the way I kind of filtered it in my mind was there's going to be a lot of things in this world and in this business particularly that you can control. And there's a lot that you can't control, right? Mm-hmm. My efforts prospecting and knowing what I need to do to build my business, I can control. I can't control necessarily how people are going to respond, if every door is going to open, if every phone call is going to go well, or if they're going to answer. But I can control my effort, right? Simultaneously with that, I find that a lot of people, especially in the social media era, there's like this external addiction, I guess would be the right syntax for it, external addiction to outside sources to motivate yourself and to get yourself going, right? So as an example, typically a lot of people getting into the business, this is their first entrepreneurial endeavor. So they either have zero experience with work or most of their work has been 9 to 5 where they show up and their role is already established and they don't have to put any thought process into what to do. You go to your office, you're given your set of tasks and you just perform them. Now coming into this business, you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder and you're only held accountable to yourself. Right. So what I see people doing is they're a little bit lost or their emotions are a little bit distraught because they feel lost or, unmotivated. And now they're going to videos or having to come to me or you guys constantly before they can actually do any work. And I found that this has really caused an issue for people because it is difficult for them to be consistent because now they're looking for something outside of themselves constantly to be energized or be motivated. So I think if people can create their own little rituals and little routines, reading books, cold showers for me in the morning are great. They wake me up. They keep me focused. Going on any YouTube channel that you find and finding something like binaural beats and meditating for 5 or 10 minutes to get your day started, with the right mindset, making sure that you don't look through your emails or look at the news in the morning that kind of sets like a negative frame and that kind of frantic type of pace because everybody says they always feel behind. I think that also leads to having that kind of mindset. But really in the end, for me, when I started, if I can go back to those first 3 years when I was a solo agent, for me, my duty and everything I wanted to do and who I wanted to become. And that's the most important, who I wanted to become, the type of person I wanted to be. I knew that doing these activities, in particular prospecting, was etched in stone, right? Like we hear all these stories about the warriors back in the day where they're born and bred to do that. Like when you look to like the Spartans and that kind of stuff, they were born to do this stuff. So I'm not saying we were all born to prospect, but that's kind of the way I looked at it, because I said, look, yeah, this can be boring, but if I commit to this for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, I can create a version of me that's better, and I can create a life for me and my family, whoever I want to help, in such a way that it's going to be very difficult for me to do anywhere else. The average person doesn't have this opportunity. And here I have it right here. And all I need to do is show up and do the work. And when I thought about it that way, it became very easy, because the time that we spend is going to go by very quickly. For everybody on this podcast or listening to the recording, the next year, 2 years, 3 years is going to blow by. I still can't believe I've been in the business 7 years now. It's crazy. I remember being new and not having more than like my dad's suit jacket to start with that didn't fit me, right? Like when I raised my arms, it was like to my elbows because he's shorter than me. So it's really having a long-term kind of vision and understanding that, hey, every day, and then I'll pass it back to you now, every day I'm going to have slight fluctuations. Some days you're going to feel super fired up and good, and other days you're going to feel sick or out of it. But hey, just show up and do what you said you're going to do. Because when you go to sleep at night, you know that you kept your word. And I really think that's the number one contract and bond that people need to keep, is their word with themselves. Because I don't know your contract with you, but only you know it. And if you keep letting yourself down day by day and not doing what you're saying you're going to do, it builds, and that's what causes people to break down and be in these super roller coaster type of days where one day they feel like they're on cloud nine, and then the next day they feel like they're down in the dumps. And I really think that contract with you is probably the most sacred contract that you need to hold in your life. So I started with small stuff. Get up on time, make your bed, make your first hour of calls. And if you can build that to where your word is now your bond and the law, you will literally, as people have seen me do on videos who have been following me, everything I said I was going to do and become and acquire, I've done that over the last 6-7 years of doing video. So that's how powerful this is. You hear all this talk about the law of attraction and all that. That's exactly what we're talking about right now in real time. It's you keeping your word with you.
I love that. So a few things that I wrote down here. Start with the small stuff, because I think when people get into the business, it can be overwhelming, especially if the deals aren't happening yet and you feel out of control. I like that you talked about do the things that you can control, and everything else kind of happens, right? Having a long-term vision, just show up, keep your word, and focus on what you can control. I love it. So what do you think business an agent gets into the business? The first thing that they should focus on is their mindset and those small things. And then what? So they started prospecting. I'm going to do 1 hour today. And because here the question said, was it difficult to get started for you in prospecting? Because I know that is a daunting task.
Yeah. That's all I can say, right? I want to keep the theme throughout this podcast of keeping it simple, because that's ultimately what we want to do. Would I say it was difficult to get started? Not at all, because when we start itemizing the tasks that we need to do as an agent, they're simple. I remember I did a lot of Mike Ferry stuff in the beginning, right? Like the godfather of real estate, like they call him, right? And he would say it's simple, but it's not easy, because then that's when your mind starts playing against you and your emotions, and you're not getting the results like you said. So it is simple to get started. I just think that people get away from those main activities. Now, I know before we started recording, we had discussed one of those recent videos that I made about the 5 activities that people need to be focused on. And for a new agent in particular, if you're going to work, as an example, an 8-hour day, my belief system is, and this may kind of scare people because it's a big number, half of your day has to be dedicated to acquiring new leads and building your business. Because with that comes potential for business, but also you're building your database and your sphere of influence. So for a new agent, I get questions like, how do I stay busy? And I sometimes return the question by saying, how can you not be busy, right? You don't have any business. You should be out hunting for business, which can include open houses, right? If your area allows that right now, making calls, going door to door, previewing homes to not only educate yourself on the listings and the that I believe will be very beneficial to you that are super simple. So if I can give you guys a quick snippet from my schedule in the beginning, I dedicated 3 hours in the morning where I had a mix of making phone calls and going door to door. And then I had another segment in the afternoon and early evening where I would do more. So maybe in the morning, I would call all of the fresh expires and for sale by owners. And then I would call some people from my sphere of influence. Then maybe I'd get out there and knock on, 100 doors. So that would be a total of about 3.5 hours. Then in the afternoon, I would either do another hour and a half of phone calls, right? Just listed, just sold, or inviting people to an open house. Or I would go out there and do what I just told you. I would pick 3 or 4 listings. I would go preview them, take a look at them. I would play a game with myself to guess what it would sell for. And then I would track them over time to educate myself. And then I would door knock 10 or 15 doors around each one of those listings. So now I'm educating myself on the market and I'm also prospecting. Now that in between time, I was role playing more and practicing with people. That way I could refine my scripts and my dialogues. And I was taking about an hour a day to educate myself, which meant studying the MLS, studying the market, reading over and learning contracts, meeting with escrow companies and educating myself on the escrow process, meeting up with my transaction coordinator that I had in office to ask her, say, hey, you do so many deals. What does it look like? What's the paperwork involved? So I was doing all that when I was new. It was either generating business or educating myself. And I really think if you just do that as an agent and you're disciplined with it, within a year or two, you can build a good business. My belief now, and this is the last thing I'll say in this segment, is agents are too spread out. They might be watching me, you guys, and like 20 other people, and then they're educating themselves 8 hours a day and they're not working. You need to be working more. I would say 70-80% of your effort has to be in the business working, and the other 20% educating yourself. So when you looked at my day and I was hardcore, right? I was working like 12, 14-hour days. Maybe in 2 hours in that were role playing and educating myself. The other 10 was prospecting, right? Doing lead follow-up, previewing homes, doing open houses, inviting people to open houses. It was very much so generating leads and building my database. So if you keep it that simple, even though it can seem daunting, that's what you have to do to get that snowball to build, and then you'll get momentum. And the best news is, guys, you don't have to do that forever. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be this cold calling and door knocking machine forever. Eventually, you'll grow your team and you'll be able to leverage, and it's a different story. But in the beginning, you got to put in the work, unless you have the money. Then if you have the money, you can market. But for most new agents like me, I didn't have a penny to my name, and I had to earn it the hard way.
Yeah, I like the keep it simple. And then, so agents that get into it, like you said, how are you not busy, right? Because you're new. There's so much that you can do to build your business. Why do you think agents just aren't, are they just daunted by the task? So they're just like, yeah, I'll just go do this over here. Or they just don't want to prospect? Like, what is it?
I believe innately we search as human beings for the path of least resistance. So let's say, as an example, there's me and then there's another guy that can watch on YouTube. If the other guy is giving them an easier option, they're going to say, screw BC. I'm going to go talk to this person because what they're saying, he's telling me I have to work hard, which I've said from day one. And I think like when I started, because of like at the time, $1 Million Listing and all these shows were coming out, nobody was really coming out saying, hey, this business is not easy. You don't just wear a fancy suit and negotiate $1 million deals over the phone and make, 6-figure commissions. You got to go out there and earn it, man. I'm getting beat up. I'm getting cussed at. I'm getting yelled at. I'm going on listing appointments and not getting them. So it brings a reality to the business, but that's that kind of like a process, like a blacksmith will take a weapon through, right? It's a crude piece of metal. He'll heat it up, then he'll beat it and beat it. Then he'll heat it up and beat it and beat it. You have to go through that to transform. And in that process is how you become a better salesperson. You build character, right? You build thick skin to be able to deal with rejection. So I think it's a rite of passage that is like going through a physical transformation or a mental transformation, right? We see these people who go on these fitness journeys where it's 2 years of grueling hard work. Then at the end, they're a completely different person. Now, the key from this is if you pay attention to every transformation somebody does, whether it's in this business or a physical transformation, any example, they're always asked at the end, was all of this effort worth it? And I've never heard anybody say no. They all unanimously say, yes, it was worth it. So it's one of those things that it may be daunting, but anything that you've done as an individual, I want everybody listening to think for a second and say, anything I've accomplished to this point in my life, right, that you deem cool or good, was any of that easy? No. It never was. When I look at any basketball tournament that I won, right, me playing in college or professional, anything I've had to do was incredibly challenging and difficult. And there was moments where you would want to quit or run away,
Yeah.
but you got to stick through it. And I don't know any way, and I've thought about it. I can't give it to people or slice it in a way or contort it to make it easy. It's not going to be easy. Will it be easier for some? Sure, because maybe you're naturally better at handling rejection or you'll learn the scripts a little bit quicker. But the
Yeah.
journey is not simple, yet who you become in the process will be well worth it because you'll become that person. And you've heard this from all the classic self-help guys. You'll become that person who can be successful. Because where
Right.
I'm at now, I wasn't at years ago. So the life that I have now, the 7-year-old me 7 years ago wouldn't be able to handle my life right now because I have way more responsibilities and things to do that old me couldn't handle mentally or physically. So
Yeah.
I just think it's a rite of passage like you see in martial arts or anything else as well. I just believe that people innately, naturally go for the path of least resistance.
Yeah, that's why subject lines and headlines of real estate without cold calling or are so popular and so enticing.
Yeah.
'Cause people are like, oh, I want to do that because calling strangers, that doesn't sound like a fun time. So you can see why people are saying those things because, oh, yeah, look, take this easy way out when there really isn't an easy way out, right? Like to be successful and a top producer in real estate, like you said, it takes hard work. And it might be simple, like the things that you were saying, like all these activities you can do seem simple, but that doesn't make them easy, right?
Yeah. There's two things I can say. And this also is in regards to what we said earlier and what I mentioned and what you just said. Let's say somebody does come in right now and they're listening to this podcast and they have money. Maybe their family has money or they've saved up a lot of money and they're saying, well, maybe I don't have to cold call. I can just buy leads. Well, to those individuals or anybody who's in that position, when you buy a lead and they come into you, you must possess the skill set to convert that lead or have systems in place to nurture that lead until they're ready and then convert them. So if that person comes in hot on the phone and calls you and you freeze, you lost them. If you don't have the skill set to set the appointment in the meeting and qualify them and then go to the presentation and get the listing or meet with the buyer and get the contract signed, you wasted your money. So I've seen so many people flush their money down the drain because of that. So that's a part. Then I have examples like the two individuals who started my East Coast chapters of Team BC in the Northeast and in Florida. They're both new agents. You know, Carol and Paula haven't been in the business more than a year and a half. And each of them has about 7 or 8 pending transactions right now. Just them, not including my other team members. And they're new. So how did I build them? What are they doing right now as we're on this podcast? They're making calls and prospecting. And they built their business that way. And I can tell you unanimously to everybody listening, they're pretty good on the phone now, but they're nothing special. You can achieve that level of skill as well. They've just been doing it consistently and they do it every day. We jump on Zoom together every day, my team, myself, all my team members, and we consistently make calls. It's on our schedule and that's what we do. And look, right, they're on track. I think after, because they've done 1 year, their second year, they're both going to do, I believe, at least 35, 40 transactions each as new agents. That's crazy,
Wow.
but you can do it too.
Just from hard work, right?
Yep.
Because I feel
And
like
it's not like, and look, it's not even like they work 14-hour days. They
Right.
call for like 2.5, 3 hours every day. That's it. They still work and do showings and have appointments, but that hard, grueling work in a 24-hour period, they do it for 3 hours. What is that? 10% of your day?
yeah.
That's not even that much. It's not like you're out there breaking bricks and breaking your back on concrete and, you know, physically laboring for 12 hours. It's not that hard. It's just, I believe people haven't done it and just this crazy fear that they create stops them from doing it. And I remember the first time I cold called, yeah, you know, I had the sweaty palms and my heart was beating. But after about 4 calls, I'm like, dude, this is not as bad as people say it is. Yeah, I got yelled at every once in a while. But when I look at, you know, all the conversations, I would say maybe 5% of the time you're getting like really cussed at or treated unjustly, like to where it might affect you. The other 95%, yeah, they might hang up on you. Yeah, they might say not interested, but they're not really attacking you, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Right.
just we put all our focus on that one possible scenario that might happen where somebody explodes on us. But when you look at it in retrospect, when I look back at the numbers and the data that I gathered from my efforts, it's really such a small percentage. It makes no sense for us to just focus on that. Yet we know what you focus on expands. So if you only focus on the fear, that's all you're going to get. And I've just really learned to switch my mind to be the opposite. I'm always looking for the opportunity or the good in things. And that's why I've been able to be a lot more efficient and show up every day.
Yeah, and that answers a question from Randy, who asked, how do you handle rejection? And it just sounds like you answered it like with your mind and not just taking, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Someone's going to say no, or they blow up on you and you hang up and it's over, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in reality, rejection is a normal part of life. I mean, there's two things I can tell you. Number one, if you think about it from a mental perspective, if somebody rejects you, you also have the ability to reject them. So if they reject me, I reject their rejection. So technically, it doesn't affect me because I rejected it. But when you saturate yourself in something, right? It's like, the people that train. I've been doing boxing now. You get used to, blocking punches and stuff like that, and you're calm under fire versus in the beginning, you're all stiff and twitchy. It's the same thing when you make calls or go door to door. After you've been told no so many times, it's like, you're like, okay, this is a normal part of this business and what I do. And the best thing to help me that I can give for people to advice is when you guys get rejected, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting your offer. So it's not like they're saying, hey, Bryan, you're a loser, I don't like you. They're just saying, hey, dude, I don't want to buy or sell. Buy. Okay. So you're not going to see them 2 weeks later in the shopping center. They're going to say, oh, I remember you, Bryan, you loser, I rejected you, right? They're not going to say that. It's just, that's the way we picture it. We take things personally. So I just separated myself and said, this is my business entity and this is me. So they rejected the business offer. No big deal. They're not rejecting me. So I just think it's a matter of perspective and also doing it enough, because that same person, after you've made 1,000 contacts on the phone, we're going to have a different conversation about rejection versus now.
Yeah. And I've heard from other people, they say a no just gets you closer to a yes, right?
Yep.
So, oh, okay, great. They rejected me. Awesome. I'm that much closer to getting to somebody that actually does need help, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that's what it's about. You're looking for somebody who needs your services that you can help. Yeah. And if they say no, what's wrong with that? They're just saying, I don't need your help or service. Cool. Let's find the person that does, right?
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that you said earlier that ties into a question from Linda. And you said that anyone can do this, right? There's nobody special doing it, that you don't have to have this certain amount of like confidence or personality traits to be successful. And Linda asked, can an introvert be successful in real estate?
Absolutely. You know why? Because I've never met anybody who, and believe me, guys, like for those of you who don't know me, I have met and been on stage with virtually every single participant of $1 Million Listing more than once. The only person who I haven't met and been on stage with yet is Frederick, right? I've met the Altman brothers. I've been on stage with them multiple times. Ryan Serhant, Luis Ortiz, all those guys, Madison, right? They're not my best friends, but I've met them. I've broken bread with them. I've talked to them. And between them and everyone else who I've met who runs super successful teams, unanimously, what I hear from them is like an underdog story. I've never met any of them that said, oh, yeah, I was a natural salesman. I jumped in and I was perfect. Most of them didn't sell a house their first year or second year, and it took them time to build. And now you guys are watching them on TV saying, dang, I wish I could be an agent like that, when they probably started off in a worse position than you. If you go back and ask people who knew me before I got into real estate, hey, how do you think Bryan would do in real estate? I don't think anybody would say, oh, he would do great. They would say, no sales experience, not a people's person, right? So the better question to ask is, can I become a master at and learn how to communicate on a high level? That's the reframe we need to take, because every single one of you on this podcast, and I'm a shining example of it, can become an extremely effective communicator. You don't even have to become a master. Just be an effective communicator, right? Becoming versatile in the sense that you can deal with all kinds of people and different personality types. That doesn't come naturally. That comes through interaction, learning technique, and applying it. So yes, introvert, extrovert, if you're an alien, it doesn't matter. You can get good at selling and communication, because that's what it's about. And again, I'll wrap it up with this. How many more of these stories do we need to hear where someone says, I came from nothing, I had no background, right? You would think that, okay, let's say some of them are made up just for the feels, just for the emotional punch, but a lot of them aren't. I'm one that, whether you believe it or not, I wasn't. So, and English isn't even my first language. Spanish is my first language. And I speak both languages without an accent because I trained myself to do that. So it really comes down to your dedication to this stuff. And if you really want it and you want to learn, right? What was the person's name who asked the question, Haley?
Linda.
Linda. If you really want to become a great communicator, by all means, you can. If you're asking me for permission, yes, you can. You can. Now, the question is after this podcast, what are you going to do about it? Because if you do something about it, then again, in a month from now or 2 months from now, we're going to have a different conversation about this, and you're going to bring me some good questions. Then you can really get good.
I like it because I feel like this episode kind of has a theme of just dedication and hard work, because you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. You can be a good communicator if you want. You can be a top producer. You just have to decide to do it, right? Like, it's just the fear that holds people back, or thinking, oh, no, like Linda said, I'm an introvert. There's no way I could be successful in this business. So we just tell lies to ourselves and convince and put ourselves in a box, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
We're already great salespeople naturally. It's just most of us have sold ourselves on what we can our whole lives, and we're very good at that instead of the opposite. So, when I look at me in the beginning, I didn't have the natural talent. I just had an obsession. I was calling people after hours saying, hey, dude, you want to role play an extra 20 minutes? Hey, man, that one line you said when we role played earlier, that was a good line. Where'd you get that from? Was that from a book? Okay, what book? I'm going to buy it on Amazon right now. That's how my mind was. I was obsessed about being good. I would go back to my whiteboard at night and say, man, I keep hearing this objection about like the local agent. How can I get over it? And I would sit there like, pinky in the brain, right? And like devise this plan on, okay, I'm going to come up with responses. And the next day I would practice these responses and say, hey, I'm going to try this one and see how it works. And then I'd come back at night and say, oh, it didn't work. Let's try a new one. So I had that studious kind of hungry apprentice type approach to it. And that's really why I think I was able to excel quickly, was because of that. When everyone else was, okay, my day's done at 5, forget it. When I'm sitting there back at home, in my lab, right, like doing it. But again, that's just effort. That's all it is. I'm not special. You all have the same, body as me. You have the same mind. We have the same functions as human beings. It's just instead of watching Netflix, I was, on my craft and on my grind.
I like it. Awesome. So we just have a quick question from Samson. He's looking where he can find your Fishbone expired scripts.
So all the scripts I've ever used have been variations of either the Mike Ferry scripts, which you can get free off his website, or the one I think I got from Kevin Ward called the Book of Yes, which I'm not sure if that one's free, but I've maybe kind of created my own dialogues over the years and variations. But those two kind of scripts and systems have been the base of my presentations and scripts since the beginning. If you listen to any conversation I have, I always ask the questions on those scripts. So I'm not using special scripts. Gotcha. It's really about your delivery of the script and then your ability to communicate between the lines of those scripts that I think is the key. Because too many people, I get messages from people and I'll send them the scripts. They're like, what the heck? These are the regular scripts. I'm like, well, yeah, dude, I don't use anything special. I've just drilled these so much that in between you're going to hear different threads and different patterns,
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Another question that just came in, Amanda asked, could you discuss some of the systems you use to stay in contact with new leads and nurture long-term needs?
Cool. Great question. So over the years, I've evolved. I'll give you an example of the beginning, and I'll give you an example now. Back in the day, I started with Century 21, and we had a system where you could set up your emails. It was very crude, right? This is back in 2013 when all this stuff was new. But I jumped in there and I would just schedule emails. I've always sent out weekly emails. That's the key you want to take from this. I've always sent out weekly emails. So what I did my best on with the emails was, if I sent 4 in a month, I would send one that was a market update for my areas, right? I would also, even in the beginning, before I got listings, I would send a featured listing. So if I didn't have one, I would find a hot looking listing or a new listing that was really nice in the neighborhoods that worked, and I would send that as a featured listing. Okay. Number 3, I always try to put either some material about my company, and maybe like, hey, we took 20 listings this month, or hey, our company's like number 1, or I would put a client testimonial. So in the beginning, when I didn't have my own, I would use my company's testimonials, right? So I would say, hey, this is agent, Bob Smith from our company. Boom, he sold 4 homes this month. This is one of the sales that he made with Mr. Johnson over here, right? So I used a system like that because it shows the testimonials. So it shows people that you and your company are selling. You're giving market updates, and then you're showing them listings. So they're getting some kind of information. Now, the 4th one I added after a couple months was education. So I'd make a video and say, hey, here's a quick market update for our area for these counties. And it would be a quick 1 or 2 minute video that I would embed in the email. Right now, I know through that system I could, and I believe also through Gmail, you have the capability to embed a video, right? I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I'm not tech savvy at all, and I was able to figure it out. So you guys should be okay. Keeping my database in the beginning, also, I did it very simply with an Excel sheet, and I would have notes. So you know how in the Excel you can divide it by little cells? I'd put name, address, cell phone number, and email. Okay. Now I created different tabs for the long-term processes that I had created. So I had an A and a B page. The A page was people who were either past clients or who I knew, and they knew me on a first name basis. So people that are very close to you. They got a phone call from me and a contact once a month, every 30 days. Okay. The B team was people who I maybe met going door to door on the phone. So maybe they'll remember me, but it's not a very close connection. Also people that I met at open houses, right? And anyone else maybe I met at networking events or things like that. So I have all their information, but they may not know me on a first name basis. Okay. That's my B team. So they got a contact from me every 90 days. So quarterly. All right. That's how I did it at the beginning. Nowadays, I use KV Core, which we get as part of our tech fee with EXP. It's like $30 a month. So the KV Core system, if people listening don't know, is a front end, kind of like a website lead generation. And on the back end, it has a CRM where you can automate all this stuff, the emails, the text messages, and all that stuff. So what I do now is I also, those people that I'm supposed to contact, we load them into our Mojo system where you can keep notes, right? That triple line dialer. And we have a set amount that we call every day. So if we can break it down mathematically for people on a simple basis, the A team, right? We contact them once a month. If we're going to use a simple example, let's say there's 20 work days in a month, right? You work Monday through Friday, 4 weeks. Let's say you have 100 people in your A team. That means I divide 100 by 20 work days. So that means 5 people from my A team, every day that I work, are getting a phone call. That way, every calendar month that you work, you rotate through. Then the next month you do the same thing and the same thing. That's the simplest system I can give. Now, in regards to leads, I have 3 folders. The appointment folder, which is the folder of the people that we set appointments with. We have the hot lead folder, right, which is people who are going to meet with us within 7 days or less. And then we have the warm lead folder, which is anybody more than 7 days out, but less than 30 days out. Okay. Now, the caveat on that, the asterisk for everybody is, the most important thing for your system, whether it's the lead follow-up and setting appointments or the database system, is what is your definition of a lead? Our definition is someone who's going to buy or sell in 30 days or less. Maybe different for you. So you have to make your tweaks based on what your definition is of a lead. So to wrap it up, let's say somebody's 30 days out and they're in the warm lead folder and we keep in touch with them. The moment they're 7 days or less, we move them to that hot lead folder. Then during that hot lead phase, once we set an appointment, we move them. If plans change, then we take them out, we put them back in our database in the A team, right? So it all ties in with each other, but that's like the quick little Cliff Notes version that I can give you of it that I think anybody can apply. But the biggest question I ask to them is, what is your definition of a lead? If you don't have that, then you don't have a database or a lead follow-up system.
Right. So, and I mean, another question that's very similar to what does your follow-up look like? So basically, I mean, you said it, you put a lead, you put it and you determine A, B, or C list, and then it just goes into your system?
Yeah. So like a hot lead, we'll probably contact them or look at them at least once a day, like every day.
Yeah.
Then the warm lead, we might go after them once or twice a week. It just depends. The main thing I think agents need to implement when they follow up with people is be versatile, right? We run on patterns as human beings, but when somebody recognizes your pattern, they tend to tune you out. So if you're just calling people for follow-up, it's not going to work, right? You have to be versatile. You have to text them. You have to send them video. You have to email them. You have to call them. If they're in your market, go door knock them, right? Send them something in the mail, like a little handwritten note that's like 20 cents, right? That's 5 or 6 follow-up methods to touch somebody to stay top of mind. You got to be versatile. So I think the more important thing is maybe not so much the frequency, it's how you're following up with them. And the more versatile you are, the less it seems imposing to them. And as a challenge to everybody on this call, I guarantee you has, or they will in the future, because I have many times, you've lost the lead because you haven't followed up enough. Okay, right? I'll raise my hand because that happened. I dare some of you, so you can find where your sweet spot is, follow up so much that someone says, I don't want to work with you. You followed up too much. Like that's my challenge to you, because when you do that, you'll know what too little is, and then you'll finally know what too much is, and you can find that happy medium. And I think so many agents never find that happy medium because they know what it's like to not follow up, but they don't know what it's like to hear, oh man, like you're following up too much, you're killing me, right? Then then you can find that happy medium where it's like, okay, this is that perfect rate and frequency of contacting them. And until you have that, I think is going to be a little bit different for everybody. You're always going to have that question in your mind. Oh, is this perfect? Can I make it better? And I push myself to actually, I've had 2 people tell me I followed up too much. After that, like it made it easier for me to follow up with people. It really did. It took that kind of fear and hesitancy out of my mind. And then I kind of found that sweet spot, which was the frequency for us.
Nice. So frequency, versatility in following up. I like it. Awesome. So we're almost out of time, but I have a question on my mind that I wanted to ask you. So right now, you go into any Facebook group, any YouTube channel about real estate, and you know that there's a lot of low inventory right now. Mm-hmm. It is like thousands and thousands of homes less than it was last year. So for agents who are struggling with this or who think that this might stop them, what do you think? What are you thinking about the low inventory market right now?
I mean, we've had crazy low inventory here in Southern California since I got into the business. So I've been dealing with it for 7 years. Right?
And that's great.
Some markets might be different. I really think again, what did we say in the beginning? Control what you can control. I can't control inventory levels as an agent. What I can do now, like I said earlier, is where's the opportunity? So one lead source that has been magical for me, 2 that I'll give you for sure, and then we'll elaborate. One is the old expired, right? Somebody who maybe expired 6 months or more. So what I used to do specifically with the REDX, and I'm still doing it now, but I did it heavily in the beginning, was I would go through my MLS and export a CSV file of all the, actives, pending, solds, and expireds, from all these zip codes. And I'd go back like 6 months, a year. Sometimes even in 2013, I was calling expireds from like 08, right? 08 and 09 when it crashed. And I would load them in, and the REDX will scrub and tell you which ones were relisted and sold, and the ones that are left are the ones that never went back on the market and sold. And I would start going after them. The conversations are not aggressive because they haven't been getting bombarded by agents, and typically they didn't sell because of some issue with the market or something happened. Those people end up becoming great database ads that eventually will do something, or you'll find sellers there that'll be ready either right then or within the next couple months. So that lead source, even to this day, is huge for us. The old expired, like greater than 6 months up to 4 or 5 years. Because if you let's say you call somebody from 2008 to 2010 or 11 back in 2013, they didn't sell because inventory was through the roof. Now it's the opposite. But every time, as an example, I just happen to flip the news on, they always say the market sucks. So how is a consumer going to know unless they have a live conversation with you, or you're in their database and you're feeding them that real news? You see what I'm saying? So that's a good one. Another one is absentee owner, which is people who own investment properties that is not their primary residence. Those people are amazing. Right now, interest rates, I think, in some cases have dipped below 2% for like a 15-year loan. We're calling absentee owners saying, hey, dude, have you considered pulling out a second line at 1.875% and grabbing another investment property and cash flowing even more? Have you thought about doing a 1031 exchange right now into something else, right, to give you more cash flow? So that's a different conversation than just, hey, do you want to buy or sell? Right. And typically the absentee owners, because they're business owners, they have properties, those conversations are a lot more about the numbers and not so emotional, right? Like a home buyer might purchase on emotion. A home seller, if they're moving from one place to one place, there may be a lot of emotions involved, right? Those are typically more business type conversations that as an agent, you're going to enjoy more. So the absentee owner and the old expires are amazing. Okay. Awesome. Low inventory kind of feeds the for sale by owner ego a little bit, right? I'd still go after them, but once the market turns, because eventually it will, that would be one that needs to be at the top of your list, because they're not going to be able to ride the wave of the market being good and having low inventory. Right. Another thing I've done that has helped tremendously throughout this whole process is I've really ramped up the education of my database and the people that I've been close touch with, as far as previous and past clients, people that we've sold to, and just people that I've met. Because then when I have sphere of influence conversations, they're a lot better. And I know if someone is even thinking about it because they have the right information and they're talking to me and getting my information, you can raise the possibility of extracting somebody who maybe wanted to buy or sell. So I would say those are the 3 main areas where you can have the most ripe opportunity. But I would still recommend everybody does the regular stuff too, right? Door knocking, just listed, just sold, all that stuff. Because regardless of how the market is, there's still going to be people who want to buy or sell. The question is are you going to find them?
Exactly. Yeah, I think, especially, I mean, you could use that as an excuse, like low inventory. Maybe today's not, or right now is not the best time to sell or buy or anything. But I like that you mentioned to go find the opportunity in old expireds, absentee owners, and database. So if people
One more thing real quick. I hate to interrupt, right?
Yeah.
Now is a great time for some of you who deal with those sellers who are a little bit more in their ego and say, you know what, dude, if you wanted more money, now's the time, because there's no inventory. So I know you were thinking about 400 and your property's probably worth 375. If there's ever a time to possibly get that, it's right now. So I play into some of those sellers who are a little bit more ego driven right now. So again, you have to look. Maybe some of you in your lead follow-up right now have that one stubborn expired who wants 5% more or 10% more than it's worth. You may be able to get it right now because there's no other homes for sale and buyers are killing each other. And that's literally the language that I use. I'm like, dude, buyers are literally jumping over each other's laps like piranhas to get into a home right now. So if you've ever wanted to get more for your home, more so than ever, now is the time. Right now, a lot of this for you guys that are listening, it's going to be your delivery of this. It's going to impact them more emotionally, but find the opportunity, because I see so many people saying, oh man, all these sellers are greedy and they want more money. It's like, dude, well, now's the time to feed into that, possibly, within reason, of course, because that might be your in. You know what I mean? So people just need to look at it from this perspective. And I've listed a few that have ended up selling for more and they're happy, because I remember on our board, I'm like, dude, we have those 2 or 3, and we would call them like knucklehead sellers that want more than it's worth. But I'm like, dude, now's the time, because I know we'll get 5 or 6 offers, and I guarantee you we'll bid it up. And we always do, or we get very close to what they want, and they're happy and we're happy. So again, find the opportunity in your markets with these little scenarios. You just have to put your mind to it and say, okay, where can I find an angle? Because that's really what I'm about.
Awesome. Opportunity. I love it. So Bryan, we're out of time, but before we hop off here, do you have any last words or advice or anything that you want to get out before we end it?
What you agents who maybe just got licensed recently or within the last 6 months or year, you're coming onto a tremendous opportunity, because I believe because obviously it's going to happen when the market turns and goes back to a normal market, you're going to see the greatest exit of agents ever, probably since like the crash. And whatever's left, you're going to be able to just dig your hands in and get a bunch of business. Every single agent who I talked to who helped me in the beginning, or who has been in the business 10, 15, 20 years, that's seen cycles, they say when the cycle turns over, the agents who stick with the business, have the skills and systems, and show up every day and work, are the ones who take all of the pieces that are left by all the agents who left the business when the market got bad. There's a lot of agents right now because they're riding the wave of the market. But when they're out, if you stick with it and you do these things consistently, you will be getting listed and buyers hand over fist. You have to keep remembering that, though. I remember when COVID hit, I got dozens of messages from people saying, I'm leaving real estate. I'm leaving real estate. So I can't imagine even now how many people have real estate, but the opportunity is ripe, and you're coming onto a pot of gold, literally at the end of the rainbow very soon.
Yep. And take the opportunity that everyone's leaving.
Build your skills now. Build your skills and your systems now, because when that happens, you will shine. Believe me, because when the market turns, right, and everyone's choosing agents like, well, it doesn't matter, the home's going to sell. And you need to have those tough conversations. The people with the skills are going to be the ones to convert the people, get the listing, and get the client, and get the check.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Bryan. I have like pages of notes from everything that you've said. Very inspirational. Everything, I'm sure, for all the people that ask questions, that you've helped them tremendously. So thank you for taking your time. I know that you're a busy guy. So thanks for spending some time with us today.
Cool. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And if we didn't get to your questions, sorry, we didn't get to all of them. Please ask them. We have our REDX forum for all of our customers that you can ask questions to talk to our community. And also we have a Facebook page, our REDX Elite Prospectors group, to go join and check out there, and we can continue conversations like this. But other than that, we will see you guys Wednesday, and that's a wrap for today.